Okay, so here's the thing. For some unknown reason, it seems to be impossible for me to edit on my current setup here in the US. And I simply don't have the time to redo it until I'm happy. So in case I mess up and it will stay in this video. And I would say let's actually get now to the review of the Monoprice M600 and M650. Yes, it is a dual review and it actually is quite delayed because some things just came in. But no matter what, I will talk about these in detail, even though I could mess up both names. Even though they are also priced very similar, they are actually quite different than you might think on paper. But let's actually get to what you get in the box, which is here, first of all, this case. It's a hard shell case, which is very nice. The only thing that I would have maybe wished for is to be shaved off here, which would have been possible due to the feature that this headphone can be rotated in both directions. So this would have allowed for a way, I think, thinner case. But no matter how it is protecting the headphones very well. And talking about very well, I also think the same about the cable, because it's the exact same cable as we got already on the Monoprice Monolith M1060s and 1060Cs. In case you're wondering about those, yes, I have those as well. Actually bought them, which already tells you what I think about them for my upcoming review. So this cable, like I said, 2 meters long, high quality, because it doesn't really tangle ever up. It feels high quality, very smooth, has 2.5 millimeters on both sides, so it is replaceable. And obviously it has 3.5 millimeters on the other end with a 1/4 inch adapter. So that's it. Now, what else do you get though is not just 2 pads, but actually 4 pads. The stock ones, at least on default, are applied are the pleather ones. And no, they don't feel good. They feel a little bit cheap, squeak a little bit, so not the biggest fan of those. Even though the same kind also goes for the velour pads, which also, especially here on the texture, just don't feel high quality, but they do a fine job. Now, which ones I like more, I will let you know after the part where we talk about the design. Because since I don't have my second cam, I will just show it like this. This is the M600. And this, which actually looks, at least on paper, on pictures, very, very similar, is the M650. And maybe you can see it, the M650s are noticeably bigger. And that has a little bit of a downside, but also a few upsides. But let's talk about the M600 first. And yes, M650 and M600 is a little bit hard to distinguish, especially since I can't edit, I can't change it, but 600s. There are 2 main differences between those two. The M600s have a smaller headband, but also smaller ear cups. The smaller headband I actually like because, as you can see, I have mine on the 1 step bigger than the smallest setting, which works fine for me. Gives me a better weight distribution because something is pushing it up and they have the right height. But what I don't like so much on these is the cutout of this pad. It just feels a little bit too small. So I'm just not simply the biggest fan of that, because if you have no issues with something touching your ear, you should be fine. But something most probably will touch your ears. So that's the only thing. Otherwise, they are very similar, but that is what I meant about the advantages and disadvantages of the M650s. Because the M650s have a noticeably bigger cutout. My ears don't touch at all on pretty much either way. So in terms of size, absolutely no problem, and also in terms of depth, it should not be a problem, especially not with the velour pads that are a little bit harder. The softer pleather pads shouldn't be an issue though either, and you have enough space. But the headband is also bigger, which makes no real sense for me, because as you can see, I have it on the smallest setting and I still think they are too big, and therefore the weight distribution is a little bit off and everything is like they are hanging on your head, which is not really all that comfortable. Now, I still would say that it is the better choice of both, because I rather have something hanging a little bit further down there below instead of having something touching my ears. Now, in terms of the headband, if you have a medium-sized head, like I would say I have, or smaller, this could be a little bit of an issue, but if you have a medium-sized bigger head, no problems at all. So mine is just about okay, I would say, but it shouldn't be really any smaller, but then it's fine, because the fit is still good enough that it won't fall off your ears. But actually, when it comes to design, I'm not quite so sure why this headband had to be so big, because it looks very thick and it looks also very wide in this regard. But it's a little bit fake and it feels unnecessarily big, because the actual padding here is not really all that thick. No, because the inside here actually feels quite hollow. Other than that though, the build quality is fine, even though quality control could have maybe been a little bit more cautious, because that's why I actually asked about my review unit, if it was new or not, because I have, let me just check, as you can see here, some smaller little blemishes, which I also have on the M650, but way smaller. So maybe they rushed it out a little bit at first, but as you can see here, I think with newer ones it should be a little bit better. but newer ones actually regarding already the M600s should not be necessary, but I'll get into that a little bit later. But other than that, the metal here is lacquered. I've seen a video where it already chipped off. It's fine on mine, and it seems quite durable. If I wouldn't have seen this video, I wouldn't have known, so I'm okay with that. It feels high quality, but overall it feels just a little bit too clunky for me. It could be in a little bit more, maybe minimalistically, a little bit filigrane designed, but other than that I'm okay. So when it comes to the comfort, I still prefer the M650 because they are maybe not the super lightest ones, but they fit a little bit nicer just overall. Now when it comes to the pads, the leather pads will get a little bit warm, but since they're open back, a little bit sweat will be a thing, but not really an issue in my opinion. And the velour ones just give a little bit more breathing room, and they feel also nice. Like I said, quality maybe they could improve, especially the squeaking of the platter ones is not my first choice. But we've covered that, so let's talk about how easy they are to drive, which actually is very decent, because if you have a normal phone, you can actually drive this in most cases loud enough for you. Now, not loud enough for me, since I'm someone who listens way louder than he actually should. And I have to say, I still almost got that with these two headphones. So I would still say, as always, if you have a little bit of a better amp or anything like that, you can get a little bit more advantage out of that. But even with a phone, you should be already decently. And it's not like they scale extremely well. If you have something extreme, you won't get so much out of them. So something decent, maybe something better than just a normal sound card or a phone, and you will be totally fine. Now, when it comes to the actual sound now, I have to tell you this. I will mostly focus on the sound with the velour pads, because I'm simply not a big fan of the pleather pads. Now, I've seen people already saying the exact opposite thing. I'm not quite sure who's right. In my opinion, it's me, or at least people who think like me, because with the pleather pads, the general sound signature was just more bassy, which is not a bad thing, but it also bleeded a little bit into the mids. The mid bass was a little bit too strong, and therefore I think that the whole sound was just more muddy. It lacks a little bit of details, especially clarity in the highs, and that's why I would recommend maybe to try these if you like a little bit more bass. But if you want something more audiophile with more details and everything else, try the velour ones. I've seen people who said they are completely trash and unusable. I would have to disagree. Now, let's start with the sound stage before we get into the sound itself. And I would have to say, if you use the pleather ones, the sound will definitely be smaller, and it will actually sound more like a closed back headphone. If you get the velour pads, it sounds like an, I would say, moderately open headphone. But even so, I would have to say, in comparison to the M1060C, which are a closed headphone, they still actually sound open, more open than these open ones do. But that's just that. But the soundstage is nice in terms, especially on the M650s. And actually, let's already start off with why I don't really want to talk much about the M600. I think, and that's just me, once they sell all they have still left, they should be discontinued, because it makes no sense for me for this headphone to exist. Not because it's bad, absolutely not, but just because it's, in terms of price, with $20 so close to the M650s, but in terms of sound, the M650 just delivers so much more that I don't see anyone making the compromise of just saving $20 for everything he loses. So I will mostly focus on these from now on. So with the velour pads, soundstage gets wider. The imaging is quite nice. I couldn't really test it that much, but I was actually fully pleased, even though I have to still say, this is still a $150 headphone, and obviously you won't get quite the precision, quite the details, and quite the openness of a proper, let's say, $200, $300, $400 headphone, especially open back. But I also have to say, I have not really reviewed any open back that's cheaper than the HD600 from Sennheiser, so that's kind of my reference point. I don't really want to compare them too much, because if it would actually just come down to the sound signature, I prefer these with the velour pads in comparison to the velour pads that you get on the HD600s, because the HD600s for me by now are almost unlistenable. I don't like that there is some bass missing, in my opinion, and that the highs are just weird. So the overall structure here is better. Now obviously there are more details on the Sennheiser and some other things, but that's not something I want to get too much into. So the bass, it extends actually better than I would have expected. It's quite a nice bass. Obviously there are headphones that deliver more details and precision, a tighter bass, but for this price range I can't complain. It was absolutely satisfyingly enough in all regards. Now, what I like though quite a lot is that they push the mids a little bit forward, so the vocals are a little bit more intimate, so everyone who likes to hear, or at least let's say to stand out make the vocal stand out, that's something that you will get. And especially with the velour pads, I think that the highs are also quite clear, but never, in my opinion, never get really close to being sharp, so there is no sibilance or anything like that. So they did actually balance them really well. Overall, I would say they are quite neutral, maybe not flat, but they definitely don't sound like too heavily sounded, which is something that you usually get at this price range. With the ladder pads, like I said, everything sounds a little bit more muddy in general. You lose a little bit details in the highs, also in terms of the bass, because it bleeds too much into the mids, which is just something that I'm not the biggest fan of. And that leads me already to pretty much the conclusion. I can't really recommend the M600s just because I think they are not necessary. So my suggestion for a successor would be to have no 600 and just focus on M650s and maybe refine them a little bit, maybe make the headband a little bit smaller, or maybe improve some smaller things. In terms of sound signature, they did it well. They could just make maybe it a little bit more refined when it comes to details, precision, something else. But the overall listening experience, I have to say, was absolutely pleasant. And it is a very nice all-rounder. That's the good thing, especially for an open back at this price range, which is what I said. I can't really judge that well because I've not have any. I know that there are, for example, for about $200 the Hi-Fi 4XX, but since I've never heard them, I don't know. But what I usually know in this price range are closed backs that are usually also way more sounded like with a V shape. But these are, and I would say, a really nice entry level into a more audiophile sound. But I would also say the following. These cost about $150, and even though it might sound weird what I'm going to say now, it might still be worth checking out. The M1060C cost $330, which is more than twice of these, 180 more. And I would still say that even though you pay more than twice, you will get more, way more than twice the headphone. It's an overall just way better refined, way better headphone. So if you just want to start out and you don't know how much you want to go into music, you can definitely give these ones a try. But if you know you are a little bit more into it and you want to spend a little bit more and you know you will be safe for a longer period of time, get something that is pretty much already like a mid-range end game, because the M1060C play well above their weight class. And these, I would say, play well in their price class. So I can't give it a full recommendation just because I don't know the competition, but what you get for $150 isn't bad. They could maybe be a little bit cheaper, maybe if you get an open box or if you get them on sale, because the thing is about these, they are not bad at all, they're actually quite good, but for some reason, which is quite hard these days, they still didn't manage to impress me or kind of give me something that I haven't seen anywhere else yet. But I would also say that anyone who gets these, especially for a nicer price maybe than $150, just because this is the hardest competition in this price range. There are so many headphones to choose between. If you get those, I don't think you will be disappointed at all. I think you will be actually happy, because just listening to them and maybe not knowing what's possible in the higher ranges, I never felt like I would be missing something. Obviously, once I switch from these directly to the M1060C, and I know I shouldn't compare open with closed back, there was a big difference here. So entry level to maybe fix you up on or get you interested in something better, yes, obviously, but they are not something you will buy and be happy for the next overall years, unless that's pretty much your price limit forever. That's where I'm gonna leave it, and thanks for Monoprice for loaning me these. I know it took a little bit longer, sorry for that. Yeah, ear infection kinda came in the way, but that's that. I hope you liked the review, and maybe until next time, bye.